I'm Vanessa Tyler. Welcome to Sarder TV, an idea-sharing platform founded by Russell Sarder, an author, investor, and CEO of Netcom Learning. Women, are you sure you're ready to retire? Well, financial planner Jessica Weaver will get you ready, and she's here to tell us how. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Talk about your success story. How did you get here?
My journey started 9 years ago when I joined my father's firm in the financial services industry, but it probably started a lot longer because I grew up in the industry. He's been an advisor since before I was born. And it was interesting to see it as a child growing up and then to go into it myself and seeing the different sides of it and really seeing my father in a different light. I would sit in on a lot of the meetings with him and his clients and seeing how he's helped these people get their kids through college, get them to retirement, or even help a woman through a really rough divorce.
Is that when you made the transition that moved you from being a financial planner to this guru for women's financial health?
A few years ago, and I noticed it all along, that the women were kind of checked out during the meetings. Sometimes they wouldn't come, or they wouldn't come on the phone calls. And it's not that they didn't care. They cared. It was just that everything in the financial services industry is so male-oriented. It's kind of the boys' club, very male-dominated. And how we were talking to the women, it wasn't making sense to them, right? There was a disconnect. And I knew it was hurting the couple, or even if it was a single woman, not be able to move forward because she didn't understand her options. She didn't understand how it applied to her, and she couldn't make a decision. And I don't know about you, as a woman, I like to feel very educated before I make a tough choice, especially with money. So I wanted to make it more approachable to women.
And you often are quoted as saying that you are not your father's financial planner, and so you definitely see the traditional ways failing women as they approach retirement.
Yes, I started my blog 3 years ago, and it's called Not Your Father's Advisor, because again, the typical advisor is basically my father, right? Men in their 50s and 60s, and there really was this gap with talking to women about money and what they were putting out. So I wanted to make the language relatable to women, interesting, fun, and not so overwhelming, daunting, and stressful for them. And that's when I started the blog. I started events just for women so that they felt they had a safe place to ask questions. And how many times they go, I know this is a stupid question, but, and it isn't a stupid question, they just didn't have somebody to talk to about it.
Wow, and that was the reason for writing the book, chock full of information.
Yes, and when I started in the industry, and this probably happens with so many people and so many careers, I did what I was told, and I did what I was expected to do. But what was happening is I was just giving everybody the standard then, right? The industry standard. And for the women I work with, for my clients, I wanted more for them. And that's why I started to relook the traditional financial planning and how is this really gonna work for women so that they get it, they understand it, and they feel empowered by the decisions they make with money, not scared the entire time.
Who would benefit most from the book? And can you save the finances of women who are about to retire less than 5 years away?
Yes, here's the thing, Vanessa. If you make something a priority, you will always, always, always find the resources for it. You will find the time for it, I can promise you that. You will find the money for it. You will find the energy to dedicate to it. So when I sit down with women, I'm doing a mental check of how committed are they to their retirement, to this goal of, and maybe it's not I retire and I do nothing, but it's to get themselves to a point that if they want to work, it's because they want to, not because they have to for the paycheck. So if they're committed, we can get them there. It doesn't matter how much time we have.
How bad can it get for families after a death?
This is a touchy subject, and I've seen it with my own family when my grandmother passed away. We've seen families break apart. And when you tie grief and money together, it's not a good combination. Grief itself is a very selfish feeling. emotion. We don't mean it to be that way, but we keep thinking about how I miss this person, how much I miss this person. And so when you're coming at something with money and you're in that type of mental space, emotional space, you act out in ways that you typically wouldn't. So we've seen siblings not talking anymore. We've seen children not talking to the surviving spouse, the surviving parent. And it ends up being so much emotion, fighting, resentment, and the money that is just wasted as they fight it out with attorney's fees, the time it takes to maybe sell a house and stuff. So it hits families in a lot of different ways.
Is there anything that women can prepare for that? I know one of the words you mentioned earlier was divorce. Is there any way women can prepare for the death of a spouse, maybe fighting with, like you said, their children, their in-laws, you know?
I think it's so important, just in any relationship, communication, right? And we have a whole timeline. I have a strong retirement club, and we get the conversation going. You retire, you have your first conversation with your family about what's going on with the money, okay? Where all the accounts are held, who your team is, right? Who's your advisor, your accountant, your lawyer, what are their contact information, kind of what is the overall plan? And then as they go through retirement, we have different times when we talk about long-term care planning, nursing home planning, and the children need to be in on that conversation. Or if single women, their nieces and nephews, whoever that person is that's going to help them navigate, they need to be in on the conversation so that everyone isn't left with blindsided by things or not knowing where anything is. And it allows them during times of losing a loved one to be there to grieve and not to worry about the financial mess.
How are women often the ones who are left out when there is no planning?
So I work with a lot of women who get blindsided by a divorce or by the loss of their spouse. And it's so overwhelming for them to have to deal with the money stuff that they don't even feel they have time to grieve. I have one widow, and her husband passed away mowing the lawn from a heart attack in his 50s. Completely unexpected. And then all of a sudden, she starts to find out these other things that were happening with her money. I have another widow, and her husband told her all along, I have life insurance, I have all these things set up, and didn't have any of that. And I stress to all women, whether you're even just getting into a relationship, the more financially independent we are in a relationship, the less strain on that relationship, on that marriage. And the less scary it is if you were to lose a spouse or to go through a divorce, or even if your spouse gets into a bad car accident and mentally isn't there anymore. It's a lot less scary for them.
Talk about the Strong Retirement Club.
The Strong Retirement Club, that's like my baby. So it started 2 years ago, and I wanted to find a way, there really needs to be a retirement curriculum. We spend our whole childhood getting ready for our career life. We don't spend much time getting ready for the retirement time of our life. So it's a 1-year membership, and the women, they're with people just like them who are approaching retirement or are newly retired, so they can relate with one another. They know they're not alone and feeling really scared to death about losing a paycheck. And they start to understand all the different components we need to think about, whether it's our mental health, our physical health, our financial health, how to stay social in retirement, and also, what is my identity going to be in retirement? Because you're probably like me, we're very career-driven women. That ties a lot into who we are as a person, our identity. And when that's gone, I've seen women get depressed. I've seen women gain a lot of weight. I've seen women completely isolate themselves because they really don't know who they are when you strip away all those layers.
You have a lot of stories from women. Talk about their retirement fears.
Of course. I think our power is in our stories, which is why I love to share my own personal story, but also the women that I've helped, that have been in my world, because you're not the only one with a certain retirement fear. There's a ton of women out there with fears of becoming a burden one day. Women, we're the caretakers. We love to take care of everybody else, We're terrified of somebody having to take care of us, right? How often does a mom take a sick day? Almost never. We hate that feeling of needing somebody else's help to take care of us. So a big fear is becoming a burden, losing our independence one day, running out of money. And what I've been noticing is that we can become a burden with mentally, physically, or financially, right? Mentally, we start to go, we need somebody to help us pay our bills, get us dressed, take care of us, get us to the restroom. Physically, we can become a burden if we can't do certain things for ourselves, if we can't drive ourselves to the store. And financially, we see people becoming a burden and they have to lean on their children, their nieces and nephews, and they don't want to have that. They don't want to have to worry about it. They don't want their kids worrying about them. And so a lot of those fears come into why I showcase them in the stories so that you know you're not alone in this. There are other women thinking these same exact things, and there is a way to help them.
Explain the fear when women learn that retirement isn't up to them, forced retirement.
Of course, a lot of women that I work with think, I'm never going to retire. I have to do something, whether it's volunteer, consulting, part-time job. But I explain that while I love the mentality behind it, I'm always going to do something, I'm always going to work, sometimes our health doesn't allow us to. Health takes us out of the game. Or our industry changes, which we see. I see a lot of women who are later in their 50s and early 60s, and they work for a company, that company gets bought, and then they're out of a job. And then they're in this cycle of trying to constantly find a job. Their industry changes, their skill set might not be relevant anymore. And so I love the mentality from a financial planning perspective. We need to be more conservative with our plan and think, okay, there is going to be a time when whether you choose not to work or it's not up to you, you're forced into retirement, we need to make sure you're okay.
What are the missing components for women in traditional financial planning?
A big piece is all the integration of our life. And we forget about how much our health affects our money. If our health isn't good, it's going to cost us a lot more money down the road. The social piece of it. Women, we are such social beings. And there are three ways that we can invest. We can invest time, we can invest money, we can invest in people. What do you think women do the most?
People.
We invest in people, we invest in relationships and connections. In retirement, sometimes we lose that piece. So how do we stay social in retirement? Because when we aren't social, we don't feel valued in life. We don't feel fulfilled. And I see women, they start to get depressed, they start to isolate themselves, and their health takes a huge decline because of it. So I think the health, the social aspect, the identity, how am I gonna live in retirement? What's gonna get me out of bed in the morning, right? I can't just be on one long holiday. It sounds great in the beginning, but by the end, you're like, I need to do something with my life. I need some purpose here. So integrating all those pieces, and I talk about in the book, Time to Refine, if we don't know how we're gonna live in retirement, how do we know how much we're gonna spend? And then I see other women who focus only on the money, and I say, well, you don't know how you're gonna live, you really don't know if you have enough. So we need to combine both. How are we gonna live with our money to make sure we're okay?
What are the three phases of refinement?
So refinement, a lot of people think, oh, retirement's the last chapter of my life. And I don't like to look at it that way. I think it is a whole lifetime in its own. It really can be this amazing time, 30, 40, 50 years of your life. And you go through different phases. We have the honeymoon phase, like a relationship. You're excited, you're gonna do all these things. Hopefully you're healthy, you're gonna travel, you're gonna experience things, you're gonna take classes, volunteer, basically do your bucket list. All these things that I've been wanting to do, but I've been so stuck working, I've been putting them off. I even have women going, you know, I used to have hobbies. I need to figure out what my hobbies are because I lost them along the way somehow. And then we have the relaxation phase. You're still doing stuff, but you're slowing down a little bit. I have some women like, I can't wait to get to the relaxation phase because honeymoon phase is tiring me out. You're still traveling, but it's probably not these grand trips to Europe. and you spend a lot more time with the people you care about, your loved ones, your family, your grandkids. And it's almost as if your priorities shift with each phase. The last phase is the reflection phase. And this is a time in your life when you really look back and think, what type of impact have I had on the people around me and on this world? And did I teach my values? Did I teach my lessons? Am I gonna leave a legacy that's gonna last beyond just me and the next generation? And we talk a lot about this with money too. Do your heirs know how you valued money? How hard you worked to accumulate this money, and how important it is that you're able to take care of them if you're no longer here? And for me, I challenge the women in our Strong Retirement Club to think, how can I leave a bigger impact on this world if I'm no longer here? And to me, that helps me be a lot less scared of death. To think, wow, look at this lasting impact I'm gonna have if I'm no longer here.
We talked about this a little bit, how women maintain their identity in retirement, especially since so many of us have our jobs tied to who we are. You walk in saying, what you do instead of your name first.
Yeah, you go to your first dinner party when you're retired and you almost have a blank. Yeah, my name's Jessica Weaver, and I used to be an advisor. You're trying to figure out, okay, how am I to other people now? I don't even know what my identity is. And I love the example, my mom, she was a stay-at-home mom. She did work, but we were her priority. Being a mom was her identity. And she says I forced her into early retirement because I was the younger of the two. And thinking, well, that's what happens, right? You kind of lose your identity and you have to figure out, who am I as a person? And I think we need to start before we're retired and realize we need to disconnect our job with who we are, what type of value do I have just as a human being, right? You strip away being a mom, a wife, a business owner, all these things. Who am I? And I am still valuable as a person without all these other things.
That's a good point. So you said start now, before you retire, to start building your own identity separate from work. That'll help.
Exactly. Because when you retire too, all of a sudden these hobbies don't just show up. We kind of have to be catering them all along and thinking about what interests me, what gets me passionate, what gets me excited in the morning. And I say to the woman, what challenges you in a positive way? And it might be some part of your work. It could be something outside of your work. But that's what you should start to think about, especially as you come up to retirement, so you have something to retire to instead of just running from your job. Like the commercial where she brings in the cake and it says, I quit. I retired
yes.
Cake. So you have something to retire to.
Yeah, but she's starting another bakery business. And so those are really your go-to rules. What are the go-to rules in retirement?
The go-to rules, I would say happy retirees on average have 3 to 4 core pursuits. Things of interest, hobbies, something that gets them out of bed in the morning. I like to tell the retirees to have one to do each day, because as you're working, time is scarce. We don't have a lot of time. In retirement, time is your luxury. You have so much time, and I have women say, it will take me all day to do one errand. All day. I'll putz around, I just have enough time to do whatever it is I want. So for them to accomplish one thing, whether it's for the house, volunteer, for their passion project, or I even call them retirement careers or retirement business, where they start something of their own. Do something so that you feel like you're getting something done each day. Because when I'm bored, I spend money. So one, it helps with the financial plan because they're not spending as much money. So I would say know what interests you. There's the Wheel of Life chart, balance chart. It's such a good tool to go back to as you come up to this time to think about, maybe I want to be very religious, I just haven't had the time yet. So now is a time that I can go to church more, volunteer more at church, do missionary trips, do all these things. It's a really good way to keep yourself in check, I would say.
You were talking about having something to do every day. So having a one long vacation for a retiree is a bad thing.
It can be. I mean, some people, they really are fine just sitting on the beach every day, all day long. But one, it can get very expensive, right? I don't know about you, but we spend more money on vacation. When we don't have something to occupy us, we find ways to just spend our money. But also, I love having structure in my day. I feel a lot more efficient when I go on vacation. I'm very excited in the beginning. By the end, I need to get back to my routine. I need to get back to working out when I usually do, eating regularly. So it helps us health-wise to have a routine, have something to do every day, but also fulfillment. The more that I help people, the more value I feel, right? So the more value I give you, the better you feel, and the better I feel in return. And that can be a big missing piece for a lot of retirement, is that connection, right? We, as human beings, we were created to be connected with one another and to help one another. So one long vacation, we miss that.
How do we get to where our money and happiness coincide?
Great question, yes. When we understand exactly how we are going to spend our money, what our lifestyle costs us, and a lot of times we don't, right? We don't like to look at that, right? I get paid and then all this money goes out the window and I'm like, where is it all going? But I tell the women I work with, we can't do any type of plan unless we know exactly what it costs for you to live. And how is that going to change in retirement? So the more clear we are on how they're going to live in retirement, the more clear we are on how it's going to affect their expenses. Okay? And then we look at their money, how we're going to build up an income that coincides, that meets that cost of living. And if not, sometimes we have a plan B. Maybe it's not the house right on the beach, it's a house a block off the beach. Or it's a condo, or instead of a few big trips a year, it's one big trip a year or every other year. But it's a way that they can still live and feel good and feel fulfilled without costing us much money. So we have to know, how are we going to live and what exactly is that going to cost me? And can I afford that with my money? And when you can, that's a happy spot. That's a sweet spot.
And I believe you just answered that question with the next, how much should we save? But you're saying it takes a deep analysis before we can even answer this question.
Yes, so many times women come to me, I need to start saving, I need to start saving. I tell them, we need to build upon this. Yes, let's start saving right away, but we need to know, how much are you spending right now? How is it going to change? And then we can get a better idea of, how much do I need to save for retirement based on what I currently have too.
What are the ways to make and save money in retirement?
I have a lot of women get creative with this, right? Whether it's a part-time job, consulting work, creating their own business. I love that because they can use the skills, their experience from their career, but now they get even more satisfaction from it because they can see it directly one-on-one how much they're impacting somebody else's life. I have women do Airbnb and HomeAway with their property, or women who are landlords and they have passive income coming in. So there are a lot of different ways to do it. We just have to see, how much flexibility do you want with it? How much freedom do you want with it? And also, going back to the other question about, what is the gap between what your expenses are and what your income? How much money do we need to earn? Can I just substitute teach a few times a week? Maybe that will be enough. Or do I need to do something that's a little bit more?
What are retirement's biggest regrets? And I know, obviously beyond not having enough money, what are their biggest regrets?
I had a retirement roundtable a year ago, and I brought this up. I said, what are life's regrets? And the women immediately said, retiring too soon or too late. You retired too soon and you weren't ready, and now you feel very lost. You have nothing to retire to. So you're just kind of fumbling through the day. And you don't have much fulfillment, much satisfaction. You miss the social interaction from work. And then women who retired too late, maybe their health all of a sudden caught up with them, and they thought they would be able to do all these trips, but physically they can't handle it, or mentally they can't handle it. And that's why in the club we stress so much about, okay, let's find a date where if you choose to work, it's because you really want to. It's not because of that paycheck, which is very hard to walk away from, okay? And then let's build a transition into retirement. So maybe you're still working, but it's more on your time. It's less stress. So when you go home at night, it doesn't follow you at home. You're not checking your emails at 9, 10 o'clock at night. It's more on your own terms too. So having a transition period into retirement can really help with those two regrets, retiring too soon or too late.
What does it mean to give your money purpose in your retirement?
I love giving money purpose. And I explain to the women that come into my world, a lot of times we have just one bank account. The money comes in. We might have a few other accounts that we're saving here and there. We're not giving a lot of intention behind it. It's just, I was told to open up a 401k, I opened a 401k. I was told to open up a college fund for my kid, I opened that up. But when we have all of our pay going into one bucket, I call them homeless dollars. We have homeless dollars. And Vanessa, what do you think happens to homeless dollars?
It disappears.
They go to another home. They go to find another home. We spend it without meaning to. And I see it all the time. People's income goes up, their spending goes up. Income goes up, spending goes up, and they never have that time to save the gap, save the surplus. So I tell people, every dollar that comes into your world should have a home and a purpose. Is this dollar for retirement? Is this dollar to pay taxes? Is this dollar to put a roof over my head? What's the purpose? Then we can start saving very intentionally. We become a lot more efficient with the money coming into our world. We get more efficient with our savings, and it stabilizes us, right? I think a big thing everyone is after is stability with our money. Emotional stability with it, stability with our income, with our expenses, with our investments even. So when I have somebody who has money coming in, and this is retirement money, okay, let's see how many purposes can we give this $1. Can it help with longevity planning? What if I live so long and that risk of outliving my money is real? Can it help with long-term care planning? Can it be very more tax efficient for me in retirement? Can it help with market volatility? So when we start to give each dollar purpose, we can then multitask it almost and give it multiple purposes. That's how we get these well-oiled, efficient machines that can help us stretch our money as long as we can.
How does Social Security play into all this?
Social Security, that's another bucket of money coming into our world when we retire. And I just did an analysis with a couple. If they start taking Social Security at their full retirement age, which was for them 67, and they both lived to 95, they would get about $2 million of benefits of money. So Vanessa, if I handed you a $2 million check, would you do a little bit of planning with it?
Yes, absolutely.
Exactly, that's what I tell people. This is a missed opportunity so many times in the plan when we don't look at how everything's working together and what purpose is Social Security going to have in your retirement plan. It's going to be income coming in. Sometimes it goes up with inflation, not all the time, but usually goes up with inflation. If one of a spouse passes away, the other gets to keep the higher of the benefits. So it can be a really good opportunity. We just need to make sure that we're very intentional with when we take it, while we're taking it at a certain time in our life versus taking it too soon or too late, and just making sure it fits into the overall plan.
The importance of estate planning, especially for single, never married women.
Yes. Right now in my Strong Retirement Club, it's about half women who don't have children. Or a lot of times they have children, but they don't want to have to burden their kids with anything.
Sure.
And we talk about, well, do I really need a will? Do I really need a power of attorney? Do I need a living will? All these things. No matter what, you have some sort of estate. Whether it's your house, a car, just money in the bank account, you have an estate. And for them, they just don't want to leave it a mess. One woman in my retirement club says, I just don't want to get hit by a bus and it's just a complete hot mess for everyone to deal with. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure everything is so easy that whoever's named executor of the will, whoever's taking care of my estate, it's not this hassle of a job anymore. But it's especially important with long-term care planning, and to make sure if mentally you start to go, your money's taken care of and for your benefit.
Yeah.
That's where the power of attorney comes into place. That your bills are going to get paid for, that your nursing home will get paid for, that you can get transitioned into a nursing home. all the logistics of needing extra care at some point in your life. That's why we stress the estate planning, because it doesn't just happen when you pass away. Estate planning and elder care planning, really, that needs to start taking place once you retire.
Is a trust the best way to leave a legacy?
A trust gives you the most control when you pass away, because you can still say you're no longer here, but you have guidelines to a trust saying, my kids can only get money every 5 to 10 years, or they can only get the income. So it gives you the most control if you're no longer here. So it depends on what type of legacy do you want to leave, how do you want to leave it, and if you want to have, I know a lot of women who like to have a lot of control, especially independent women, we like to control, we work so hard to have this sum of money, we want to make sure people utilize it properly and efficiently and just to go and spend it on whenever they want to. And it helps the heirs because if it's in a trust, you don't have to worry about if you get divorced. You don't have to worry about your family and friends coming to you for money because it's in the trust, it's not in your name. And we see that happen too, where people assume you have all this money. They'll go to you, I have a great business idea. Or can I borrow a loan? Can I have some money for my kids' college? And it takes from you having to say no. Oh, no, it's in the trust. I don't have to say no to you. So it gives you the most control in the end.
Speaking of people wanting to borrow, is there someone waiting for you to die? And I guess that trust is the best way to have conversations with them?
Yes, we call it the passive inheritor, right? And sometimes if you think you're going to receive a large inheritance, you might not push yourself as much in your career, or you might spend a lot of money knowing, oh, I have more money coming to me. So I like to bring up the notion that just because your money is getting passed down to the next generation doesn't mean your money values are getting passed down.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest piece. So starting the conversation, I offer free sessions to all of my clients' kids because I know how important it is to my clients, and I also want to make sure that their kids are taken care of and their parents don't have to worry about their kids and money. And it also helps get the conversation going from the parents being the bad guys to you need to save, to coming from somebody like me, a professional who's been in the industry, and to make sure that the kids are in line with their parents' value of money. And also to ensure the kids aren't picking up any bad habits from their parents, from their peers, or their spouses. Because our parents, they grew up not knowing what to do with money.
Right.
They just tried to figure it out. And the same thing with the kids. The kids don't know what to do with money. They're just trying to figure it out. So it helps to prevent a passive inheritor who's just going to blow through the money. But yeah, a trust can help with that too.
What is the serious money conversation that we have to have with ourselves?
The biggest thing is that we don't know how we're doing until we get somebody outside of us to look at it. We don't know the bad habits we're making with money, or even the good habits. We don't know if we're saving enough until we have an expert come in and look at it. And I do an assessment with all the women that I work with. We do it before we start working together and towards the end of the relationship or throughout the relationship. Almost every woman, they can get themselves about halfway without needing extra help. And I've seen it with my own business. I could only get myself halfway without needing a business coach to bring me over to that next level. It's probably in anything in life. We can get ourselves to a certain level, but now we're gonna have new problems, new things to overcome, and we need somebody outside of us, an expert, a partner, a mentor, to get us to the next level. So I think the serious conversation is, am I doing enough? And are there missed opportunities that I don't even know about?
How to be a money queen.
A money queen. So my third book is going to be Money Empire. And I just launched my new program, my Money Empire program. And it's really about, to be successful with our money, we need to treat it like a business. We can't just put it on the back burner and think one day it's all going to work out. Or I see women procrastinate with it, or at some day, when I have more time, I'll deal with it. We need to treat it like a business, because in the end, it is a business of funding our life. It's funding our lifestyle. And every successful business owner, they know exactly how much is coming into their life, what every dollar is doing for them, what every expense is costing them. and they try to be as efficient with their money as possible. We need to do the same thing with our own money. So really it's about creating, if we want a money empire, so that we no longer have to work for the paycheck. We work because we want to, and we can do that at any point in our life. We just have to treat our money like a business to get ourselves to that level.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your advice, and your interview was absolutely excellent. Thank you, Jessica,
Thank you
for
so
coming
much,
in.
Vanessa. I had a blast with you today. Thank you.
And thank you for watching Sarder TV, an idea sharing platform where thought leaders come to share their ideas. I'm Vanessa Tyler. I'll see you next time.